Americans are so broke that they are now unable to buy even the simplest of things. If you're looking for that sign that households here at home are now struggling, then be prepared to see a lot of them today because things are not getting any better. This is something that's clear for banks like JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and basically anyone that offers credit cards, as those are now becoming the lifelines for many people. You can ask Visa, MasterCard, American Express, all of these different providers the exact same thing, and all of them are probably going to give the same answer. Americans are now tapping out and delinquencies are exploding at a blistering rate.
Why are so many Americans so deep into credit card debt?
People are leaning into credit cards much more than they were previously. There are a couple of different factors here. One big factor is obviously inflation. Things are just more expensive than they used to be. Cost of goods is up across the board. And so we're seeing a lot of Americans lean more into credit cards in order to make ends meet. So this isn't just frivolous shopping, Lindsay. It's not people being flippant or doing a lot of new travel. It's a lot of times people just trying to make ends meet with the budget when it comes to groceries and other basics. And so as a result of that, but combined with raising APRs that are really compounding a lot of that interest, we see Americans carrying much more credit card debt than they were previously.
And let's talk about the impact of e-commerce and digital wallets. How do these one-click purchases actually trick our brains, essentially?
Buy now, pay later is very popular when you go to check out, when you're checking out from an Instagram ad or something like that, and you see the option to either pay $50 or to pay 4 payments of $12.50. Boy, that $12.50 just feels much better in the moment. And it's that delayed payment, it actually creates a little bit more of a dopamine release in our brain when we end up having that option. We go with the option that's less painful. We go with the option that's going to feel better. And so it's important for people to be aware of that, how that can be treacherous, because even though buy now, pay later doesn't necessarily have interest rates, there are late fees, and it just reinforces this loop, Lindsay, of not paying for the thing that you're buying in the moment and punting that payment until later. That tends to get a lot of people in trouble.
You can understand that more and more people are being forced into debt nowadays, given that inflation really hasn't gone to a level where we're seeing prices drop down. But we're now kind of at a point where even I'm surprised as to how bad things are. You see, it's recently come out that those buy now, pay later plans like Affirm, Afterpay, Sezzle, Apple Pay, Clara, they're actually being used to buy alcohol. I know, I can't believe it either. Now, if you see yourself in Walmart or Target and you're now forced to finance your alcohol, I hope you take this as a sign that things are unbelievably bleak in the United States. Not just the fact that alcohol is not good for you, but I guess people are looking for an escape somehow. Now, if we go strictly by the numbers, you can see here that 22% of BNLP or buy now, pay later services, they're financing alcoholic beverages. Now, on the other hand, credit cards are paying for at least 30% of these purchases. If we look at this graphic here, we can see that the installment plans are now being used more and more for stuff that many of us could pay for with cash before. You can see with clothing and accessories, books and hobbies, health and beauty, appliances, auto parts, gadgets and electronics, sporting goods, building and gardening items, as well as home furnishings. Now, if this is not a sign that we're swimming in the deep end of the pool, then I don't know what is, guys. So Constellation Brands, which is a pillar for beer, wine, and spirits, they're saying that the drink is very resilient during tough economic times. I wonder why, right? But yeah, even with this fact, shoppers are now making smaller purchases, probably due to the price increases that we see, not just with alcohol, but also with pretty much everything else in the market. Now, the deal with these items that I listed though, is that they're not necessities, not at all. Which brings me to just how many Americans are fighting debt at this point. A recent survey showed that 3 in 5 Americans, or roughly 61%, are in credit card debt. The average amount that they owe right now is sitting at an average of almost $6,000. Now, the bad news is that about 23% of respondents said that they're going even deeper into credit card debt. That's only made worse with the finding that late last year, 60% of consumers, they're saying that they're now living paycheck to paycheck.
So in essence, and this is something we talk about a lot, people are only paying, they're not paying down their balances, they're just paying the interest, which lines the pockets of the credit card companies or the banks, making them wealthier and richer while Americans either just keep their head above the water or in some cases sink if you can't make those payments.
Right. So it's problematic at the household level, especially now because average annual percentage rates on credit cards are so high. So it's a really costly kind of debt to carry, which is why experts emphasize how important it is to prioritize paying off credit card debt first before other kinds of debt, just because it's a really hard cycle to break. Not only are you carrying debt, but when you're not paying it off, it's growing month to month.
I'm going to guess that the people who are finding themselves under this weight are the people who are already pretty vulnerable.
Well, Gen X are leading the pack as far as those who are most likely to carry debt. Women also carry more credit card debt than men. And as far as geography goes, it's folks who are concentrated in lower income areas that carry the highest level of credit card debt.
Now, of course, this has had a huge ripple effect with different markets. One of them being the automotive market, where auto loan delinquencies are now in their worst in like 30 years. The percentage of subprime auto loan borrowers that are at least 60 days delinquent or past due has now exploded to 6.11%. This is the highest that we've ever seen since 1994. It's no wonder why repossessions are also going up, right? I think it's at like 20.4% since late last year, and it's probably going to continue to rise as we're seeing our expenses grow. I keep seeing TikToks of Range Rovers, Mercedes-Benz, Audis, Teslas getting towed out of people's driveways. These repo truck businesses are probably making a killing right now. But that outlook isn't the same for everyone. In fact, we're hearing the federal government boast and practically brag about how everything is just so much better for millions and millions of Americans. Statements that some lawmakers are just not happy with.
The United States national debt hit a record $34 trillion. In fiscal year 2023 alone, the United States owed $659 billion in interest on this debt. And you could expect that number to be much higher this year. These numbers should alarm every American and make it clear that Bidenomics is not working. But the American people, they already know this. The White House repeatedly has lied, publicly praising themselves for a healthy economy and taking credit for a meager post-pandemic numbers. The American people aren't buying this false narrative. Hardworking Americans are still struggling to pay their bills and balance their family budgets, while the president and the Democrats in Washington continue the reckless spending. According to a recent Axios poll, 72% of Americans say that their grocery purchases are the top way that they feel inflation in their lives, closely followed by gas prices at 56%. They also found that 2/3 of Americans are worried that food prices will continue to climb.
Now, whether you agree with this or not depends on how you're feeling personally at the moment. But to be honest with you guys, it doesn't really matter as to, what these people say, because we know for a fact that we're competing with one another. The stakes are made that much higher because it's an election year. Now, what's important though is what we feel about the economy, how Americans are seeing the expenses, and if things are actually going according to plan. So my question for you guys is, what do you think of all this? Now, as far as I'm concerned, I'm gonna do my best to keep you guys informed on what actually is happening out here, the real actual data and numbers that reflect what's truly happening here in the country. So before I go, I want to thank you guys for dropping a like for the video. Thank you for subscribing, and I'm gonna see you guys on the next one. Take care.